confused, everyone.
Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool.
I know.
It feels so right.
Jake Ciely.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman. Pretending not to know. Earth's greatest mastermind.
You just made the list.
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you ducks. It is the all-in speedrun. Jake Ciely with you with some notes, some last-minute notes before your hopeful final drafts this weekend. Hey, we might be drafting next week, too. Draft all the way up till we get till NFL kickoff. That's a lot of tills in there. But right out of the gate, let's get to Rashee Rice and the suspension. He accepted the 6 games to start the year. Rashee Rice, I think, is worth drafting as your wide receiver 4, maybe wide receiver 3, depending on your roster. You're not going to be able to stash him on your IR. You're going to want to put him on your bench. It's going to really depend on your team makeup. But it's kind of similar to the years past when we had the Le'Veon Bell situation. You know what you're going to get once they're back. I will say this. I'm not as optimistic as some guaranteeing top 10 production when he's back. I think Xavier Worthy is a significant threat. I think they could be the top 2 options, which would be bad news for Travis Kelce's resurgence. But hey, Kelce can get off to a really nice start, and then maybe some of you think about trading early after game 4-ish. But anyway, point back to Rashee Rice is I actually haven't projected out if you just take the 11 games played to 13 fantasy points per game, which would put him as a mid wide receiver 2 most years. Worthy checks in at 11.8, obviously behind him for the entire year as a fringe wide receiver 2. But that's where I'm saying I don't know that Rashee Rice's ceiling is top 10 with what Worthy did last year. And I think Worthy could even get off to a nice start and maybe a kind of a 1A, 1B situation where they could get up to the 12, 13 point range. Rashee Rice might get to 14, 15 again. I just saying I like them both. I would take Worthy as a 3, maybe even a high end 3, and I would consider Rice after him, maybe a round or 2 after him. Another big piece of news. You guys, I don't know if I've said it on this podcast yet. Maybe when I did the running back breeze through. Holy crap, that was a lot of names in one short episode. But Ollie Gordon for the Dolphins. This is why I like Ollie Gordon. Back a few months ago, I said that he could fill the Raheem Mostert role better than Jalen Wright could, but I was still taking Jalen Wright. Understandably so. He was the incumbent. Ollie Gordon had to prove himself. Well, Ollie Gordon not only proved himself, Jalen Wright did 2 things. 1, looked like the worst running back in the NFL this preseason, and then 2, got hurt. Achane sounds like he should be fine for week 1. He's nursing the calf injury. But even if he is, this is similar. I don't understand why people aren't more excited about the Dolphins' second running back. They were somewhat excited for Jalen Wright. I think if Jalen Wright was a thing, they should have been more, and they should now be even more so with Ollie Gordon because it's essentially the Lions. We're all excited for David Montgomery as an RB3 with the touchdown upside, and this is what the Dolphins do. Did everybody forget already Raheem Mostert from 2 years ago? And no, I do not think Ollie Gordon is going to be a top 5 running back. I think if anybody were to do that, it'd be Achane. But again, going back to David Montgomery, Ollie Gordon can be a really nice RB3 for you with RB2 weekly upside. Somebody asked me about zero transition there, by the way. Somebody asked me about strategies, especially for SuperFlexes. If you are not in the SuperFlex, I am going to talk strategy in general too, but real quick for SuperFlex, they ask about when to take the quarterback. So it depends. You can go 2 different ways. If you take an elite quarterback, so if you take one in the first round, especially at the top end of the first round, basically the top 5 quarterbacks like normal, you need to grab another quarterback before you get outside the top 16, maybe top 18, and here's why. You're taking that elite quarterback. You now have an advantage over most teams. If you wait too long and take a mid-low QB2, you threw away that advantage that you had, and now you're middle of the pack at quarterback, which actually hurts you more because you passed on Jamar Chase or Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley, whatever it might be, and you have no distinct advantage over everybody else. You brought yourself back to the pack. So when you take an elite quarterback, you want to continue your advantage. Now, if you don't take an elite one, and maybe you're at the back half of the first round, whatever it might be, I still want to double tap before I get outside the top 20. I go a little bit further with this, maybe top 22, because you don't want to be chasing a terrible quarterback that could potentially lose their job. Daniel Jones, we'll talk about him later, but something like that where I want 2 solid quarterbacks that can keep me actually in the middle of the pack where I'm making up that advantage because I likely went Jamar Chase or a running back or something like that. So there's the strategy there. Positional value holds over for all leagues. Same thing. If you take Bijan Robinson and then you wait, and your second running back is Ollie Gordon, and I just talked him up, you threw away their whole point of taking Bijan Robinson. Now you're just an average running back team. Same thing if you went wide receiver. So as you're drafting, remember where your strengths are. You cannot come out of the draft, unless you're in a 10-team league with a bunch of jabronis, you can't come out of the draft powerful at all 4 spots. You're going to have to sacrifice something. And when you do, just remember to keep the advantage you drafted. I've said it time and again. I just want to remind everybody, also don't waste your bench. I have an entire article about that over The Athletic. If you're not a top 40 to 45 wide receiver, if you're not a top 35 to 40 running back, why are you drafting them? You want to draft potential breakouts. You should have been drafting Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon for a few weeks, not these replaceable running backs that might get you 6 points a week. Not Wendell Robinson, who needs 150 targets just to finish as wide receiver 44. These are wasted picks. You get league-winning Oh, there's another one. I just did my free guys over The Athletic. I'll get a victory lap here for a second. You guys know me if you're listening to this podcast, so you know I'm having some tongue-in-cheek fun with this. But holy crap, 11 for 15 last year, and maybe even 11 and a half for 15 because one was Jordan Mason, and the production he gave you on that short time was pretty valuable. I just want to say, the free guys last year, I don't know if I'm ever going to live up to that again, but I went 17 this year, and there's a lot of names I really like. Actually, one of them is a holdover from last season. Make sure you check that out. But those are the type of players that should be on your bench. Sorry, I don't see any reason to really draft Adam Thielen unless you just need a fill-in for the first few weeks now that he's been traded. By the way, let's talk about him. Traded to the Vikings while Jordan Addison is suspended for 3 weeks. What are you going to get? Like I said, 3 weeks of production at best. Unless you just doubled down and took Chris Godwin and Brandon Ayuk to wait out the injuries, or maybe you drafted earlier and took Jennings and we don't know if he's out there for week 1. I get it if you need a fill-in, similar to Nick Chubb with the Texans. If you need production for the first few weeks because you took a flyer on an injury guy, or you already have somebody who got hurt, or you want a second half breakout, which is kudos to you, and you do need production, I'm okay with those players, but more often than not, like I said, Thielen, if there was no Jordan Addison suspension, didn't want him on the Panthers, don't want him on the Vikings, really. And let's talk about the Panthers now with the trade. Xavier Legette, probably playing outside like he has been, and I think that he's still interesting for the breakout potential. This is somebody that, as of right now, if he doesn't produce, is going to be considered a first-round bust. But Jalen Coker spent a lot of time in the slot, and I think this obviously frees things up for them. It's going to depend how much the Panthers want to run 3 wide out there, where Legette and Coker are both great flyers, especially now that Thielen's gone. Thielen was kind of a thorn in their side more than anything. And I will say, if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for a tight end flyer, don't forget about Jatavian Sanders. There's a world where Jatavian Sanders is the second or third most valuable. Sorry, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. I had a root canal that turned into it was a root canal crown, and the crown fell off, and I had to get the first step of the implant, and so there's like a hole in my face right now, a hole in my mouth where the tooth used to be that's completely empty, and sometimes my tongue slides over there. Phrasing, everybody. Anyway, back to this. Don't forget about Jatavian Sanders. That's what I'm talking about. Tight end. Another situation, Tim Patrick no longer on the Lions, and I'm getting some questions about Isaac Tesla. I did not move him at all. He's in the free players piece. I have continued to love some Isaac Tesla, mostly because I compared him to last year's Juwan Jennings, that if something were to happen to Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams, or maybe even Sam Laporta, and they run more 3 wide, he is going to be like Jennings last year, but he's going to run to the waiver wire, deservedly so. Tesla, some big playability, and if he's a starting top 3 option, whether it's one of the wide receivers or, again, Laporta being hurt, Tesla is going to be a big one. So if you're in a deeper league, 12 team, you might be able to even stash him there. There's another rookie, Alec Ayumanor, who I brought up before when I talked about the wide receivers. If you missed that show, I got through about 85 wide receivers in 15 minutes, so you can give that a listen. But point being, he just needs to get past the walking corpse of Tyler Lockett and Van. I make 2 plays a year and get excited about it. Jefferson. So there's upside for Ayumanor on your bench. Let's take a step back and go to quarterback here for a minute. Daniel Jones, I said he was going to be mentioned. He is the official starting quarterback of the Colts for now. If you didn't see my theory, I think this is basically if you start with Anthony Richardson, he has a bad game or two or three, you immediately tons of questions. When do you turn into Daniel Jones? Is Anthony Richardson still your quarterback? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Whereas if you go to Daniel Jones, and we know who Daniel Jones is, and he has 2 or 3 bad games, you turn to Anthony Richardson, and even if Anthony Richardson then has a bad game, it's like, well, we can't at least go back to Daniel Jones. We can't go down that ship again. He's obviously nothing in the NFL. So you kind of, I think it's a ploy. I do, but maybe I'm crazy. The point being for fantasy, I will say this. If I knew Daniel Jones was going to be the starting quarterback for all 17 games, stock up Tyler Warren, I think is a contender to be inside the top 10. I had been out on him while it was assumed Anthony Richardson might be the starter. Stock up Josh Downs. Stock up Jonathan Taylor-ish. He was already great anyway. On the flip side, stock down Alec Pierce. Stock down Michael Pittman. And Adonai Mitchell, whatever. I don't know that Adonai Mitchell was going to have a tough road getting through all those names anyway. Whereas Anthony Richardson comes in, stock up Pierce and Pittman, stock down Josh Downs a little bit, stock down Tyler Warren, and stock down a little bit Jonathan Taylor. So that's why you might still see Josh Downs in the 40s for my rankings. Not might, you do see him there, is because Josh Downs, I think, could be a great wide receiver 3 with Daniel Jones, an inconsistent wide receiver 4 with Anthony Richardson. That's how you play this. So again, these are going to obviously mostly be bench pieces anyway, outside of Jonathan Taylor. I mean the wide receivers specifically, which is the good news here because you know how to act if this quarterback situation ever looks like it's changing. What else do we have to talk about? How about Quinshon Judkins? Big fat shrug emoji. No idea when he's showing up. It seemed like he might get the suspension cleared up if it was coming, which we are all assuming the NFL is going to do something. But they let Pierre Strong go, that being the Browns, and it's kind of like, hey, maybe they know that Judkins is going to get situated, his situation is going to get figured out. Well, then they picked up Raheem Sanders off the waivers after being cut, and I was like, eyebrow raise, maybe not. So who knows what's going on with Judkins? Still not signed, still hasn't even practiced with the team. The answer here, Dylan Sampson. I do like Jerome Ford, but he's kind of a replacement level quality running back, and he is quality. He's fine. He's kind of in what I would say the Nick Chubb range of draft picks, but if you want the option that even when Judkins finally shows up, if he does, Sampson's basically their version of Tajay Spears, Austin Eckler, where half and full point PPR can be an RB3 for the entire season, and maybe even more if he starts out hot and then he ends up being an RB2 for the entire year and kind of make it like a Jalen Warren type of situation. So there you go. I mentioned some of the free guys. Make sure you check that out over The Athletic. There's quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, the whole litany of them. I already mentioned a couple here. Even Marvin Mims and Cedric Tillman, stock up on both. Oh, by the way, let's go back to the Browns. Make this a Browns show, I guess. Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims, both of them are the number 2s. And by the way, Joe Flacco's at quarterback. Oh, and Double E, by the way, over his last 17 starts, Joe Flacco, 4,400 plus yards. Bet you didn't know that was a thing. So Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims, they're the 2s. Inconsistent wide receiver 4s probably, but they're wide receiver 4s. So you can roll with the upside as much as you can take the down games because they can have some helpful league winning-ish type weeks. And then you can offset the bad weeks because they're your 4s. I will announce the Madden winners on the next podcast. If you haven't sent me your tweet, screenshot, or whatever it might be, that's your entry. Like I said, that simple entry. And even if you want to subscribe and rate and review, whatever you send me, just tweet me a screenshot of something you did to help the podcast. I'm really trying to get the traction going. It's slowly ticking up. I appreciate you guys. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your wife, tell your kids, tell your husband, tell your dogs. Bark it down the street and tell all the neighborhood dogs, just not any cats.